Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Miranda. If you're new here, you are welcome. And on this channel I make sewing related content. I actually added a new segment, which is the cook and sew along segment, and that is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be cooking okra, and in Zambia we call it delele or umlembwe. In Mozambique we call it kiabu. What do you call it in your language? I know, right? Yeah, so it's a delicious meal. I like it. I normally eat it with pap or shima, and this is what we're going to be making today while I show you how to finish off your raw edges when you're sewing, especially if you're new to sewing and you don't have an overlocker. I'm going to be showing you some methods that you can use to finish off your edges and make your garments look professional and neat. So yeah guys, let's get into it and enjoy the tutorial and the cooking, of course. Okay guys, so let's get into the tutorial. Here I have a small piece of fabric with raw edges on 3 sides. On the other side it's really a selvage, so it doesn't need any attention, but you can still apply, especially if you want it to look uniform. Okay, so what you need for this first method is you need a pinking shears. So this is a scissors. They also call it a zigzag scissors because of these kind of zigzag ridges that it has. So as it cuts the edges, it's going to leave this impression, and that is what is going to prevent your fabric from fraying. So after you finished sewing, okay, you just take your pinking shears, and you can buy these in your fabric stores or craft stores. They come in different sizes, so you pick what works for you. So you can see as it cuts, it leaves this zigzag impression. So this is method number 1 of how to finish your raw edges, especially if you don't have an overlocker. Okay, so let's move now to method number 2 of how you can finish your raw edges. Okay, so here we have our okra. I've just put it in the basin or in a dish. I'm just going to wash it. I have some tomatoes there. I'm also going to wash those, my chilies, and then we're going to go to the chopping board. Okay, so we're cooking our okra. I already have cut it here into smaller pieces, and we're going to start cooking. So you just put a little bit of water in the pot. You can see it's just little. I'm going to prepare it the way we prepare it in Zambia. So we normally cook using a little bit of soda bicarbonate. So I'm just going to add that now. Okay, too much. So about a teaspoon of the soda bicarbonate is fine. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt there. And of course I'm going to now add the okra. Okay, I just want to adjust the light here. I hope that you can see it. Okay, so I added the soda bicarbonate, I added a teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to add my okra there. Oops. And this will be quite quick. Okay, so now we're going to go to method number 2, and what we're going to do is we're going to use a zigzag stitch. So this is a method you can also use if you don't have an overlocker. Here I'm just showing you my dials on the machine, and let me see, can you get the other button? Yeah, so here I'm going to set my dial to zigzag. You see, this is the stitch that I'm picking. This one. So I'm going to be using this. I pick that, and then you have to pick the stitch length. I like reducing mine to between 1 and 0, and then the width I'll put it at, let's say, between 4 and 3. So you can decide what works for you. Okay, and then we're going to go now and take our piece. So this piece, if you see it, it already has a stitch joining these two pieces together. Okay, so you can see that this is how it was joined. This is the place where it was joined here. So now we want to finish off the edge, which is this part. Okay, so we're going to place that on the machine, and let me just set it. So you want the needle to be down. Okay, I'm gonna place my piece of fabric there, and then I'm going to just, I want to see if it's properly locked. Yeah, and then we are going to do our reverse stitch here. Let me show you. Okay, so I'm going to push there or press this button to do our reverse stitch, and then we're going to start stitching, and it's going to stitch zigzag in a zigzag fashion. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay, so we're going to start our zigzag stitch there. I'm just going to, if you want, you can increase the length. I'm just going to, and the width there, so that the stitch is not very small. So I'm trying to go as slow as possible so you can see. And I'm using a different color thread so that you can see what I'm doing or what the stitch looks like. So you can see here, this is our, let me just cut this off. I'm just trying to cut off the excess. Okay, so this is what our zigzag stitch looks like. Okay, let me bring it closer. This is how our zigzag stitch looks like. Okay, this is on the flip side of the fabric. I don't know that, I hope that you can see it. Yeah, let me bring it this way. So this is my zigzag stitch, and then on the other side, this is how it looks. So you can finish off your pieces using this stitch, and of course there are other decorative stitches depending on your machine. Let me bring you down here to where I have these, different styles. So I use just the regular zigzag stitch. You can try out the other decorative stitches and see how they work out for you, but I normally just use the ordinary or the normal zigzag stitch. Okay, so guys, that is method number 2 of how to finish off your raw edges. Let's move on to method number 3. I wonder which one that is. Okay, so we've added our okra, and we're going to leave it to start boiling. And but you need to be nearby because it's going to be foaming, and you need to control that, because otherwise it will overspill to your outside of the pot, mess up your stove and all that. Okay, so while we wait for the okra to start really boiling in earnest, we're just going to go back to our sewing table and continue our sewing while we're keeping an eye on our okra. So we're now moving on to method number 3. Here I have two pieces of fabric that I've stitched together, and I'm using a contrasting thread so that you can see what I'm doing. Obviously, when you are making your pieces, you have to use a matching thread, obviously. Okay, so you can see I've joined these two pieces together, and this time we're going to use an overlocker to finish off the edges. Okay, so let's move on to the overlocking machine. I'm just going to move here, and I'm going to move the camera close. Let me see. Okay, so this is my overlocker here. I'm just trying to position it. Let me put the camera on the other side. Okay guys, so I was able to move the camera to the other side so that you can see. So this is my piece of cloth, and I'm going to just push the edges through the overlocking machine. So I have to lift this lever to place it in there, and I'm just going to go ahead and overlock. Okay, so I'm just cutting off a small piece about 1/2 inch. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so this is how our piece looks like. You see, once you have used an overlocker. Okay, I'm just going to put this piece down so that you can see it nicely. I think it's out of focus, so let me put it by the table. And always remember, when you're overlocking, you leave a tail of thread so that you don't have to start rethreading the machine all over. If you cut it very close, it means it's going to unravel. Okay, so I'm just going to move the camera and bring it further down, okay, so that you can see what we were able to do with our piece. Let me bring the camera further down for you to see better. Okay, yeah, I think you can see it better now. Let me move my overlocker here. My space is very limited here. So anyway, so this is how it looks like. This is the entire piece, right? So you can see the finishing really looks nice and professional. And if you can afford an overlocker, I would encourage you to get one. This is how our finishing will look like with the machine. Okay, so moving on, let's go to our next method of how to finish your raw edges. Okay, so you can see our okra boiling there and it's forming. So you can just tap in there. Don't tap all the way down because then it starts kind of crushing the okra. So just on top to keep it down. And as it is boiling, I'm going to add my tomatoes. So I created my tomatoes. Here they are. And they have to be really ripe. I didn't get very ripe ones, but this is what I got. So I created about, let's say, two and a half tomatoes, because I want a lot of tomatoes in there. You can put less. So yeah, so we just leave it to boil for a while, but keeping an eye because it will continue forming. Okay, let's go back to our sewing table. Okay, so coming back to our sewing table, we have here a piece of fabric which has raw edges. It has raw edges on the sides. This is a selvage, but the three sides are raw. You can see that it frays. So these pieces of fabric coming out. So our next and easiest method that most people use is a folded edge. So they also sometimes refer to that method as 1 by 1. 1 by 1 meaning you are going to be folding, so you have to turn it to the wrong side. This is the wrong side of the fabric. It had something stuck there. So you fold it to the wrong side of the fabric, and you're going to be folding in 1 centimeter, and then you fold it again another 1 centimeter. That's why they call it a 1 by 1. So 1 centimeter is about 1/2 inch if you're using inches. Okay, and you can use your gauge, your sewing gauge, to measure that 1 centimeter, or you can use the guide on your sewing machine. So after you folded it 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, or 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, depending on the sewing allowance that you left or your folding allowance, then you just take it to the machine and then you just stitch. Okay, so you can even pin it, because this fabric, it doesn't stay like the African print. When you fold it, it will stay. So you can also iron it. to keep it in place, especially if you are new and you are still learning the ins and out. Just sew it when you fold, and then when you take it to the machine, it will stay easy. Otherwise, you can just pin it the way I'm doing, so that it helps you as you stitch. So now we're going to take it to the machine, and we're just going to do a stitch all the way, and then we'll be done. So let's do that now. Okay, so we're going to go to our machine and we're going to stitch. So you can place it this way so that you can see the guide on the machine. It has these numbers here, if you can read, so that will guide you. Okay, so we're gonna place it on one, and then you're just going to do your reverse stitch and then take it all the way down. Okay, take it all the way down. I'm using again a contrasting thread so that you can see what I'm doing. In your actual projects, you actually need to use a matching thread. Okay, don't forget to reverse. That helps the machine to lock your stitch. Okay, so here you can see we have our stitch. It's neat, you can see, and then this is the other side. Okay, so this is how you would finish your pieces, your projects, using the one by one method. Okay, I don't know that you can see it better. Okay, so this is how it looks, and then on the wrong side, this is how it is. So this is the one by one method. Okay, we're going to move on to our last method, and this one also helps you finish off sheer fabrics. What are sheer fabrics? I'm going to be explaining that now. Are you finding this tutorial helpful? If so, please support this channel by subscribing, sharing, and comment. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. So now moving on with our tutorial, I want to talk about a method that you can also use to finish off your raw edges using bias tape or bias binding. Okay, so this is a bias, especially for the new ones who are new to sewing. A bias tape, this is just a piece of fabric that's cut on bias, or it's cut at 45 degrees angle, so that it gives you a stretch. Very good to work with this even on curves. Okay, so my next method is going to be the bias method, where you use bias binding to finish off your edges. So I just want to show you, this is one of the pieces that I used for the Mozambique Fashion Week. So this was a Vodacom challenge piece. As I was making the pieces, the sewing machine died on me, so I had to use plan B. And no, I wasn't going to outsource, because it was going to be very costly. I'd already spent a lot of money on buying the materials and whatnot, and the accessories. So you can see, I don't know that the camera can catch this, you can see that I finished off the edges of this jacket. It's a detachable jacket, so this was the down part. So you can see I used bias tape to finish it off and make it look professional and presentable. So you can use this, and this is the method I'm going to be showing you. Let's get sewing. Okay, moving on to our next method. Here we have two pieces of fabric that have been joined together by this stitch. This is just a normal straight stitch. So you can see it's two pieces and they've been joined together. Okay, so now we want to finish off the edge. Imagine that you don't have an overlocker, or if you're into couture, or you just want to make your work look extra beautiful, you can beautify it using our bias. So I showed you a red bias, but since this is blue, I'm just going to use this one. I could only find a light blue bias, and that's what I'm going to use. So here we have two pieces, okay? So you open it, or you leave it like this. You open, and this is the wrong side, okay? The way you'd normally stitch, right sides facing, so you'd be stitching on the wrong side. So what you want to do is you take your bias, you open it, okay? So the right side of the bias is going to be facing the wrong side of your piece of fabric. So you're going to take one edge and you're going to place it this way. You're going to open the bias and place it this way. I'm trying to get some pins here and just pin it. You're going to then stitch on that line, this fold, that's where you're going to be stitching, okay? So you're just picking one of the pieces. So how you place this bias also will depend on where do you want the bias to be showing. Which part do you want to beautify? So I'm placing it this way because when I open this raw edge, I want this bias to be on the other side, okay? So we're going to go to the sewing machine. We're going to place it this way on the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch on that fold, okay? We're going to stitch on that fold. Okay, so I've gone on to place the piece on the machine, and I'm going to be stitching on that line, okay, all the way down, okay? Remember to lock your stitches, go slowly, and make sure you are only catching one piece, okay, or one side of the two pieces. Okay, so we have attached it on one side. Now what you want to do after you make this stitch, remember this is our stitch, okay? This is our stitch. You want to fold the bias this way. Let me put it on the machine so you can see what I'm doing. So you want to fold. Now you're going to fold these raw edges. You push it inside to the side of the bias, and then you bring this bias step and fold it this way, okay? And you fold it this way. Do you see? You can even put your pins. I'm gonna open it again, and then you push the raw edges towards the bias, and then you fold that bias this way. You can go ahead to place your pins. I hope I can get some pins here, okay? Make sure the raw edges are inside there, like this, and then you are going to stitch just a top stitch. Yeah, my things are everywhere scattered since I left for Maputo. My things are just somehow. So here we have stitched our bias to the raw edges, okay? So this is the right side of the fabric, but when you flip it on the wrong side, this is how it looks like once you've put or attached your bias. Isn't this neat, guys? So there is no excuse for you to make clothes or pieces that are poorly finished because you don't have an overlocker. This is another way you can use a bias method or a bias tape to finish off the edges. If you want, if it's not a place where it's curvy, you can even put just one bias tape and you join the two pieces together. So it depends on what you want. I find this to be helpful. You can reduce the allowance here. Maybe you just have ½ inch and then you add your bias tape so that when you iron, you don't have that bulkiness on the inside. So this is another method. We're now moving on to our last method, which is a French seam. Okay. So still boiling here, just tapping in a little bit. So you can cook this at medium heat so that it doesn't foam so much. And it will take you about between 10 to 15 minutes. Your okra should be ready once the water goes down, especially if you didn't add too much. As long as the okra is cooked, it should not take you more than 10-15 minutes, unless the okra was not fresh, because when it's not fresh, the okra is going to be hard, so it's going to take more time to cook. So you can see it's foaming up more. So I'm just tapping it there to keep the foam low or to take it down. Okay. Another thing you can do is you can just lift your pot and put it aside a little bit, but I'm not going to do that. I'll just continue tapping it on top. Okay, so we'll continue doing this until I see that the okra is cooked. You can see it's already cooked, but I just want the water to go down a little bit. So I'll do this for a few more minutes, another 3 minutes or so, and then we'll be done. So okay, let me quickly peep on what's happening on the sewing table, and then I'll come back to show you the finished product of our okra. Okay, so our okra is ready. I'm just going to move it a little bit from the plate so that we see how it looks like. This is how it looks like. I'm going to bring the camera closer in the pot like this. Yeah, so that is our okra, and I'm going to be serving it with shima or pap, and yeah, I'm gonna dig in after that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how I served this pap with our okra, and then also I'll be winding up on the sewing table. Okay, so our last stitch on how you can finish your raw edges is a French seam. So the French seam is the only seam or stitch where you are going to be stitching on the right side of the fabric. Okay, this is the right sides, because here on the inside this is the wrong side. That's why I've marked it so that you can see. So this is the wrong side, but you are going to be stitching on the right side this time. So we're going to stitch about ½ inch on that line I've stitched there, and then I'll show you what next. After stitching on that ½ inch, you are going to trim it to about 1/8. You really want it to be very small allowance left there, so about 1/8 of an inch is fine. You cut off the excess, okay, and then you are going to flip your pieces to the wrong side like this. This is the wrong side. Remember, I marked these places so that you can see that X there and this one. So you flip it, and then you are going to go and iron it, or if you want, you can iron it open like this so that it lies flat, or I hope you can see you can iron there, or you can iron it to one side and press, or to this side, whichever side. Okay, I'll use that. And then you are going to close it. Make sure that that joining is on the inside. You're going to be stitching about ½ inch or less. You can even feel as you stitch. Now this is the wrong side, remember? So we want to stitch the raw edges inside. So we're going now to stitch at ½ inch. I'm just going to draw a line here so that you can see where to stitch. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to stitch exactly on that stitch. Actually, you can even feel as you go. This one, because it's a little bit transparent, I can even see where the raw edges end, somewhere here. So I'm going to be stitching by this line all the way so that I stitch the rough edges inside, and they will not be visible either on the inside or on the outside. So I'm just going on to the machine here, and I'm going to stitch it very quickly. Okay, remember to lock. Okay, make sure everything is on the inside. Okay, so this is our stitch. This is our stitch, and this is how it looks like. Okay, so when you flip now to the right side, you see this is the right side. There's no raw edges peeping out, because if it's peeping out, it means you didn't trim enough. But when you do this, you find that on the outside or on the right side of the fabric, there are no raw edges showing, but also on the inside of the fabric, there are no raw edges showing because everything has been stitched inside. And this is a very good way to finish off your sheer fabrics. By that I mean your lace, your chiffon, and all the soft fabrics. Okay, because you don't want sometimes to have that overlocking stitch or funny looking stitches in those fabrics or pieces made out of such pieces of very soft fabrics or materials. So this is your French seam where you stitch the raw edges inside. So I'll show you again. This is the right side of the fabric. You can see what you need to do is just to iron and make sure everything lies straight. And then this again is the inside, no raw edges. Remember, this stitch is not good for curves. Okay, make sure you're using it where there are no curves. So this was the last method that I wanted to show you, and thank you very much for watching. Okay, so here is our okra and our pap. I have some chilies here, and this is what I'm going to eat the okra with. It's a very nice meal, and yeah, so this is it. This is how you prepare the okra. Very easy and very fast, especially if the okra is fresh. Thank you guys for watching this recipe and how to prepare it, and also for watching and sewing along as we were preparing this delicious okra. So I'll see you in our next video. Bye. Okay guys, we've now come to the end of our tutorial today, and I hope that you learned something. I hope that this was informative for you, and that from today onwards you'll be able to make those professionally finished pieces regardless of whether you have an overlocker or not, right? Yes, because you've learned how to do it. And then also thank you very much for watching how to prepare our okra, our delele, our kiabu. I don't know what you call it in your language. Try it. It's delicious and healthy. So thank you guys. I'm going to be serving my kiabu with pap and shima and of course my chili. But you know I'm not supposed to eat chili. I actually have been told not to eat chili because I have stomach issues and. So I won't abuse it that much. I'll just eat a little bit, just a little bit of chili. Okay, thank you very much guys. I'll see you in the next video. Remember to subscribe, share and comment. Bye bye.